Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head to England. It's my first English beer review in quite a while actually, but for this one we are going to head to Hartlepool in the north of England, and we're having a taste of a beer from a brewery that I've heard some really good things about actually, and it's one that I'm very curious about in fact. So for the first time we are going to go to Donzoko Brewing, who seem to specialise mainly in German beers, and we're having a taste of their rock bottom Doppelbock, which comes in at 8.5%. Now, as I've told you many a time on the channel, I really love German traditional beers. My friend Peter over at the Clueless Drinker, he's another one that falls into this bracket, and we're always suggesting different German beers and things to each other. So when I moved over to Heidelberg in Germany and lived and studied there, I really got into the German Helles beers, and then the Dunkels and the Doppelbocks came a little bit later. But of course I'd always been a big fan of the Bamberg smoke beers, thanks to my good friend Daniel, who I'm often over to visit. So really looking forward to trying this one. This one is one of the first non-German Doppelbocks that I've come across. I think I've maybe had one or two actually from Scotland. I don't think I've had any from Germany, or one. No, I have had one from Sweden rather as well, and I think maybe one or two others from random places too. So do let me know some other kind of non-German Doppelbocks in the comment section below as well. It'd be cool to hear your suggestions of that. But very curious to see how this one turns out, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Donzoko Brewing. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Donzoko Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Donzoko Brewing are based in Hartlepool, which is in the very north of England, and the company is headed by Rhys Hugel, and he started home brewing back in 2014, but he also studied chemistry at Newcastle University and then later at Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich, and it was apparently during his time in Germany that he really developed a love of the different German beer styles. So he was due to study a master's, but he decided that he wanted to do something else, so he dropped the master's, and he'd been having some real success with his home brewing, and so he decided that he wanted to found his own company, and he did this with some savings of course, and also grants from Newcastle University and Hartlepool Council, and he got the company up and running in early 2017. But originally they had quite an interesting way of brewing their beers. They were mainly brewing the wort at another facility and then bagging it up and transporting it to their own premises and then fermenting the beer in their own tanks and things like that. But later they did secure some of their own brewing equipment from China, and like I said, this brewery, they mainly produce German style beers, but when I was checking out the Untappd and things, there are one or two Belgian style beers in there, and they seem to be experimenting a little bit with some sour beer as well, which should be quite interesting. But yeah, their biggest beer is called the Northern Helles, and it's a German style Helles beer, that one. So it's quite cool actually to see some breweries in England brewing German style beers, because you know a lot of the breweries that would want to do something like that, they'd be more along the lines of wanting to brew English bitters and stuff. We do have one brewery in Scotland, West, that brew German beers, and the guys at Inverarman Brewery actually were quite into their German style beers as well. So we have a couple in Scotland that do this kind of thing, so really curious, as I say, to see exactly how this one turns out. I do believe I've actually had maybe Harbour Brewing Company, a Doppelbock from a brewery down in Cornwall actually. I'm sure I did have one from there. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about the brewery. This is quite an unusual brewery, this one, I guess you could say, but really looking forward to trying the beer. And as always, if you want to learn a little bit more, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can check out all their different beers, and you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on at the brewery. So yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one. But yeah, you can see quite minimalist, quite kind of modern, that I have to say. I couldn't find out exactly why the brewery was called Donzoko. It's quite an unusual name, isn't it? But yeah, it looks very, very nice, nicely printed. It's got a little wax top on it here. It says on the back, rock bottom Doppelbock, 8.5% ABV, a showcase of rich German malt and crisp lager yeast. This is the first iteration of our limited release Doppelbock series. It contains Vienna, Munich, Cara Munich and Carafa 3 that build a deep bread crust of caramel backbone, hopped with Hallertau Hersbrucker, imparting a herbal hop aroma and subtle bitterness, and fermented with a lager yeast. A tart finish brings out cherry flavours from the German malt. So yeah, should be really interesting this one. Apparently 4.25 UK units. I actually bought this beer from, this is one of the last beers that I bought from the Hop Knocker in Durham. Actually, I bought this one just before I was leaving, so I have had this beer a couple of months, but Doppelbocks will last a couple of months in the bottle actually. But without further ado then, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting. And I'll just need to figure how to actually open this one up. So fingers crossed it actually wants to come apart. There we go. Yeah, that's not too bad actually. Sometimes these wax things can be a pain in the arse, but this one seems to actually be not too bad. Come on. There we go. Yeah, so a little bit of it still stuck to the side. I'll need to clean my desk after this, but yeah. There we go. Yeah, just a plain bottle cap on this one with a bit of wax on top. I will need to clean that up after. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. So yeah, you can really smell some of the lovely caramel malts in this one. One thing I should say about this beer, I guess, as well, is that perhaps using a tulip glass like this is not the correct glassware. The Germans do get a little bit sensitive about the glassware that you use when drinking different styles of beer. So this glass isn't the ideal one, I guess you could say, for the Doppelbock. But I like this glass as a kind of all-rounder for all the different beer styles. So as you could see, there was about a half finger of a frothy, kind of beigey head on this one actually. It's a kind of dark fawny beige colour actually, but you can see that's faded away to just be a very thin foamy layer. But you can smell some of the lovely bready qualities and brown sugar coming out of this beer as you open up. If I hold this one up to the light, it's actually a very kind of dark mahogany, I'd say more of a chestnutty colour actually, a very dark, rich mahogany chestnut colour. If you let some light come through, you can see it's got an almost Coca-Cola coloured edge to it. It's actually not too far off the colour of the glass of the bottle, to be honest. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. You can see a few little bubbles heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall the appearance of this one isn't overly surprising when you consider that it is a Doppelbock, although I would say this one is a little bit darker than some of the ones I've come across in Germany. Quite a few of them are a little bit brighter and more mahogany than this. But yeah, it looks very, very nice, but not anything particularly surprising when it comes to the style, other than the fact that it's a little touch darker. But yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. Ooh, that smells really nice actually. The brown sugars in this one I would say are quite different from the German Doppelbocks that I've had. As I say, I'm a huge fan of this style. This one, and it should, I think this will be really interesting actually. It's got a very strong treacly aroma to it. It's got a big syrupy, toasty brown sugar quality to it, this beer, I have to say. Yeah, I really like how everything's going together in this one. Yeah, so you can smell the nice bready base of this one. I would suspect that they're maybe using a little bit of Weyermann malt in here. You know, Weyermann, huge company in Bamberg that produce all these different malts. The Carafa malt, if I'm not mistaken, was actually developed by them. The malts in this one are Vienna, Munich, Cara Munich and Carafa 3. Carafa 3 was 100% developed by Weyermann, I'm sure, or at least the very first Carafa was. But yeah, this one is a beautiful aroma, this lovely, big, rich, dark brown sugars, and they're very syrupy, very treacly. It's got a bready element to it as well. It does smell like it has a bit of that kind of bread crust quality to it. If you think of a well-fired bread crust, it does have that little element to it. You can pick up some nutty and woody subtleties to this one, but mainly the centre of the aroma of this beer is all about the brown sugars and a little bit of that kind of bready quality as well. You do get a little bit of a fruity note out of this. It's got a kind of It does have some of the kind of deeper cherry kind of plummy notes to it, the bigger juicy ones, but it's got a little bit of a raisiny sharpness, and you can get almost some kind of candied fruits out of it as well. Like if you think of like raspberry, hard raspberry candies and things like that, it does have a little bit of that kind of aroma to it as well. On the hoppy side of things, you can pick up a little bit of that earthiness, that kind of typical German noble earthiness in there. As you say, if you are used to the German beer styles, you really get used to the smell of these noble hops. So you can smell a nice little bit of an almost sweet earthiness, some floral aromaticity coming out there, but quite mild that actually, and a little touch of a kind of grassy note as well. But you know, overall, the aroma of this beer is really nice. The way the brown sugars come out is a little bit different, but everything else to me comes across as it is pretty authentic. The fruits are a little bit sharper, I think, as well, which is interesting. But as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in. One thing I would say about this beer as well is it's a little bit higher in alcohol than most of the German Doppelbocks. Most of them I think sit around 8%. This one's 8.5, so you get a little bit more of a treat with this. But without further ado, let's have a taste of this beer and see how we get on. This one is the Rock Bottom Doppelbock, coming in at 8.5% from Donzoko Brewing Company in Hartlepool in the north of England. Let's get stuck in. Slange, Skål, Prost. Prost, rather. Ooh. That's pretty nice, actually. It's interesting, this one. I always like this. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Scotch ale, you know, my native beer style. And I suppose when you like the Scotch ale, it's kind of natural to like the Doppelbock as well, because they're not a million miles away from each other in terms of their flavour profile. And of course, I do enjoy a nice Belgian quad as well. The German Dunkel's a lovely beer also. This one, to me, it has that German authenticity to it, but it's the way the flavours come out that's a little bit different. And I always enjoy this when you try beer styles from different countries. You know, for example, an English Doppelbock. I've only ever had one other one. I've had a couple of Scottish ones, as I say, but mainly this is a style that you'll only really find German breweries having a go at. But yeah, I have to say, I like this one. The flavours are definitely different, but it works really quite nicely, so this one gets a thumbs up from me, and this is a style that I enjoy. But I will say, if you're thinking that you're going to get something along the lines of, you know, Weihenstephan or Corbinian or Paulaner Salvatore or Eyinger Celebrator, you know, this beer is a good bit different from that. It's got its own kind of different character to it. It's definitely, it's one of these beers, I guess you could say, it has a little bit of the German authenticity to it, but it's got a bit of an English twist. I think that's probably a good way to describe this one. The way and the order in which flavours come out in this beer are actually quite different. But yeah, this is really nice actually. I like how this goes together. So let's try and break the flavour of this beer down a little bit then. First off with this one, you can feel you've got a nice kind of bready malt backbone there. The Carafa's actually given this a little bit of a roasty, toasty, black malty quality. And that's one of the things where this beer is different. You do have some of that bready malt in there, which will be coming from the Vienna and the Munich malts. The Vienna malts always have a little bit more of a kind of brown sugary note than the Munich malts do. The Munich malts are always very, very smooth and very, very kind of white bready, if you like. But the Carafa's given this beer a little bit of a toasty, black malty type backbone to it, which is nice, and it mixes in with that bready quality that you get from the Vienna and from the Munich. So the beer's got a little bit of a twist that way, and you can feel the roasty black malts kind of coming out a little bit more the further that you go into the aftertaste. If you come a little bit further forward on the palate as well, you do start to get some kind of woody notes out of this beer as well, which is nice. Yeah. It's just, as I say, it's just really interesting how all these flavours go together. The breadiness for me starts to come out more and more in the aftertaste, but you can feel that thing I was talking about with the Carafa having a little bit of that roasty, toasty, black malt quality to it. It's quite subtle actually, it's not overpowering, it's an unusual thing to have in a Doppelbock, right enough, but it really does work actually. And this is one of the things you always get when different countries try different beer styles from other places. You'll always get little quirks and things like that, and that's what makes this whole beer reviewing game interesting. I really like how they've pulled this beer off. It does get a thumbs up from me, but just you know, if you're a kind of traditionalist with this style, you might not. You know, you might find a few things that you're not expecting with it, but I like what they've done with this. As I say, if you come forward on the palate, you get a little bit of the woody notes, and if you go to the very centre of your palate and move forward, you can pick up a little touch of nuttiness towards the front of the tongue too. But the brown sugars in this beer are coming out very, very nicely. You can pick those up in the very middle of your palate, and it's a whole blend of like very, very syrupy, dark, toasty treacle. You've got a little bit of a kind of sweeter caramel in there as well. You've also got this kind of caramelly wafer type quality to the beer as well, which is really nice. There's a whole host of different things going on in this one. But I really like how this, how everything goes together in this beer. I think the yeast is helping it a little bit as well, just thickening up. The malt base does feel a little bit kind of thicker than you're going to get from the kind of authentic German Doppelbocks. But I have to say, they have done a good job with this one. I mean, I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again, although be it at 8.5%, this beer is a little bit of a treat. I can't remember how much I paid for this. I think I must have paid about a £5 for this beer, but you know, it was worth it, I have to say. It is one of the things you do miss about Germany, the fact that you can get Doppelbocks like this for €1.20 or something mental like that. You do miss that when you've lived in Germany. But yeah, this is definitely a good beer. Have a go at this for yourselves. Just see what you think. Let's get the last of it in here. But yeah, I like that, and I'm finding the further I go into the aftertaste with this beer, the more the middle of my palate dries out, and you get a little bit of that kind of black malty dryness in the middle of your palate, which is nice. And the aftertaste of this beer is really quite pleasant actually, I'll have to say that. On the hoppy side of things, it's pretty much what you'd expect. Back corners of the palate, you've got a little touch of earthiness in there. And it does give the beer a little touch of bitterness, but it builds a good bridge between the carafa malt and the hoppy side of the beer actually. As you come further forward along the sides of your tongue, you get a little bit of a floral note to this one. It does have an element of herbal quality, I can see why they would say that. But as you come further forward on the front corners of the palate, it does have a little bit of a floral aromaticity at the front corners of the tongue. Then round the very front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, I have to say. I really like how everything's going together with this beer. Yeah, it's just nice. Just behind the front curve of the palate, as I always say, you get that little oily bubble where the fruity esters start to come out of the beer. And for me, this one, it's got a whole host of little things. With this beer, it's got a little bit of an almost, I want to say it's got a little bit of a raspberry-ish sharpness to it. And granted, this beer's is a couple of months old, so it maybe there's a teensy little bit of oxidation in there. We'll have to be aware of that. But yeah, it has a little touch of our kind of raspberry sharpness in there. Cherries, I don't get so much in the way of cherries out of this one, I have to say. For me, it is more of a kind of plummy, raisiny type flavour, I would say. I think more of a sharper raisiny flavour to this one. The further you go into the aftertaste, you do get a little bit of an almost kind of sultana quality out of the beer as well, but you've got some nice candied red fruit esters in there. You know, it reminds me of the little heart-shaped sweets in Haribo Star Mix actually. It really reminds me of that. Yeah, I do like how everything goes together in this one. It's got a really nice it really does have a nice little bit of sharpness. The fruity side does have a really nice little bit of sharpness in the beginning, but the further you go into the aftertaste, you feel the roasty, toasty malt coming out. It gets a little bit of the tartness from it's almost like a raspberry-ish tartness, but you also get a little bit of a kind of raisiny note out of it too. But then the further you go into that flavour, you start to get the more juicy, you start to get a little bit of the more juicy candied fruit notes out of this one. It's almost like a kind of candied strawberry. Like I say, there are little heart-shaped sweets in the Haribo Star Mix. That's what it really reminds me of. But yeah, like I say, it's a really interesting take on the Doppelbock, this one. The quirky parts about this beer are probably the roasty malt, like I said, and a little bit of some of the fruity qualities, the way that the fruity qualities have just that little bit of sharpness. But you know, overall, this is a really nice beer, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. It's a style that I'm hard to impress with, because I do know the German traditional ones quite well, but I think they've done a nice job on this actually, and it does have, the way the breadiness comes out in this one is a little bit more English than some of the other ones, but I think adding the Vienna malt to this is quite an interesting touch too, because you do get some kind of biscuity caramelly wafer flavours in the middle of your palate too. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel, I would say this was a pretty full-bodied beer. Yeah, carbonation smooth, mouthfeel is pretty damn oily, I have to say. A little bit of hoppy bitterness, I would say around the kind of 30 IBUs. A little bit of bitterness from the malt base as well. Smooth kind of bready note. And you've also got a nice bit of kind of sweetness in there as well. It's got a good balance between smoothness and sweetness, and also a little touch of roastiness in this Doppelbock as well. But nice little bit of juiciness and sharpness from the red fruity side of the beer also. So I have to say, I think they've done a nice job with this beer. I've mentioned that a few times, but I've been impressed with this one, so maybe I need to have a go at their Helles and see how I get on with that, because that's another traditional German style that I really enjoy. But yeah, I have to say, impressed with this one, and it does make me curious about their other beers. So well done to Donzoko Brewing for their take on the Doppelbock, and they have, I think, just released the next iteration of this one. So if you get the chance to have a go at that, I recommend that you do. But yeah, a really lovely beer, this one, and I'm glad that I was able to review it for you here on the channel. So I hope you've enjoyed my take on this one. Let's leave it at that. So this one was the Rock Bottom Doppelbock, coming in at 8.5%. A little bit heavier than the traditional German ones, right enough, from Donzoko Brewing in Hartlepool in the northeast of England. Lovely beer this, and I'm really glad that I was able to review this one for you. So until the next time, slange just now, and I'll catch you guys very soon. As always, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Donzoko Brewing as well, and do give me some other Doppelbock recommendations that you would like to see me review, because it's a style that I very much enjoy reviewing. But thanks again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Until the next time, slange out, skill, check out my social media. Prost.